I'm Emma. Today I was going to take you through a 30-minute sequence on looking after your knees. So if you have knee pain, then make sure you take care of yourself. We're going to use props, so you need a couple of towels, either a firm cushion, a yoga block, or maybe a book or something to sit on. But making sure that if you do actually have knee problems, that you are sure and have spoken to your doctor that it's okay for you to exercise. You may be in the phase where it's actually still hurting, still causing you a deal of pain, so you need to make sure that you're actually on the recovery side of that before we start to do these poses. So I am sitting, but I'm going to firstly come off the block that I have, but I'm going to have a couple of towels next to me. We're going to come into Upavista or Konasana, which is wide leg position. So as wide as you can go. It doesn't have to be stretching to either ends of the mat, but you want to flex your feet at the ankles, so toes pointing up, so it activates the leg muscles. And you'll find that if already you're starting to sink down, so your back is curling, and you're finding it a little difficult to sit upright because your hips and hamstrings are tight, then take some towels and prop yourself up. So sitting up, so propping the hips up a little, will help then, and bring your hips to the edge, or your sit bones to the edge of the mat, the towels, so that you can roll forward. So the hips will roll forward a little. You'll feel it a little easier to sit up straight, so you might need a couple more towels than I have here, and you will start to feel the stretch through the inside of the thigh. Okay, so we're going to bring the hands in front of you, and you're going to start to walk the fingertips away, so keeping the feet flexed, and don't just allow the back to round. It's not about reaching the arms forward, it's about keeping the lift up through the core, so lifting through your pelvic floor, bringing your navel to your spine, keep the chest lifting slightly, shoulder blades relaxed, so that you can try and keep a straight spine. So just go as far as feels good for you, and you'll feel already that stretch as you start to roll that front of the pelvis forward. What's happening with the legs? We've got the vastus muscles in the thigh. You've got the outer thigh muscle and the inner, and it's the inner one that's often weak and the outer one is much stronger. So this causes an imbalance through the knee. So what we're trying to do is stretch the inner vastus muscle. So we're going to do a few stretching poses. We'll then do some strengthening. Okay, and walk the fingertips back up. Take your hands behind your knees, lean back a little, and just bring your knees in and hug there. You can come up onto your toes, just hug your knees in. Lift up through your core. Okay, then coming onto your knees, so actually I'm going to get a thicker towel. So if your knees are really sore, and often during yoga I run a lot, so and particularly recently been doing some hills, which makes the knees a little bit sore, so I often use a towel to kneel on anyway, on some of the lunging positions, etc., poses. So having a towel to kneel on, we're going to come into child's pose. So taking your knees wider than your hips, touch your toes together, rest the tops of your feet down. You're going to sit back towards your heels. So you may feel that even though you're kneeling on here, that's still too uncomfortable for your knees. So then you can always take another towel, and you can pull one either side, whatever, but you can pull it into the back of the knee joint, which just helps to open that fraction more, to give a little bit more space through the knee. That might help. Or you can put them over the of the legs and the heels. So as you sit back, the angle isn't too steep. Then you're going to slide your hands forward, rest your forehead and the tip of your nose on the mat. Again, you may want to have a cushion or a block to rest your forehead on if you feel that your head is hanging in mid-air. So keeping the arms active, and as you press down through the palms, keep the forearms lifted. You'll push the palms away from you. It's a nice little stretch through the hips as well, but just open through the front of the knees. Just taking 8 to 10 breaths here, settling into it. And just using the exhalation to soften, so try not to grip with the thighs if you feel discomfort. You can come out. Pose. You can always roll onto your back and hug your knees to the sides of your ribs, so that has the same kind of action for the back and the hips, but it's not really opening the knees as much as this pose if you can manage it. Okay, and then coming up, props out of the way. So I'm going to sit in what's called easy pose, Sukhasana. So again, you might want to sit up on something a little, but we're going to stack that. So rather than having the cross-legged feet, you're going to straighten the foot, lay one leg down. So just have one foot stacked in front of the other. So again, if you feel here that you're rounding through the upper back, it's hard to sit up straight, you can bring your hips a little higher or sit up on the edge of a block. And this is the sort of pose where, instead of sitting on the sofa at home when you're watching TV or reading or so on, you can sit up straight. You might want to lean against the back of a sofa or something, but just allowing the hips to open, and it's helping to gently open through the knees here, so you can change the angle a little of the legs, and even prop the knees a little in that way, just helping to gently open through the inner thigh as well, hands resting on thighs. As always in yoga, pranayama, so it's the control of the breath. So we're trying to have an even inhale, an even exhale, but using the inhale for more upward breath, upward movements, and keeping the spine nice and long. Okay. Bring the knees up, take your blocks out of the way, come to stand. Excuse me. So, firstly from the front of the mat, we're going to stand in mountain pose. So, feet are going to be hip distance apart, but you want to spread your toes, so lift your toes, spread them, place them down. So you feel all four corners of your feet pressing into the mat. You're not gripping with your toes, feeling that complete grounding. Then you feel the lift of that energy up, and then your thighs will start to activate as you lift up your kneecaps. So rather than when you're standing up straight, you just snap your knees back, which hyperextends excuse me, through the back of the knee. Sorry. relax, which then engages the thighs and stops that hyperextension through the back of the knee. Lift up through the pelvic floor. That's your Mula Bandha, your root lock. Then Uddiyana Bandha, which is your solar plexus lock, which means bring your navel towards your spine. Lift your chest, but slide your shoulder blades down your back towards your waist. Reach your fingertips down. And your gaze is ahead. Almost like, as you slightly lift your chin, take your palate back so you're not allowing your head to droop forward. So lift slightly the chin and take the palate back. Just take another 5 or 6 breaths here. So being aware of that alignment. Are you balanced? Can you feel equal weight through your feet? And not leaning forward or back, so making sure the shoulders are stacked above hips, stacked above knees, stacked above ankles. Okay, then from there, exhale, and then I'm going to use my sideboard because it's right in the front here, but you might, actually I'll come to this side. So you can go to a wall, and I'm going to, this is like a skier's exercise, but this is for strengthening knees. So you're going to have your back flat against the wall and then bending the knees, but you want to try and have the knees above the ankles and just sit up here. So you'll feel that strength coming through the knees. Use your core. You can come out of this and go back into it if you feel it's too intense. Now we're into our strengthening poses, so building strength around the knees and trying to make sure that the thighs are parallel, knees over ankles, so we're working evenly through the vastus medialis, so the inner thigh, as in the vastus lateralis, which is on the, I think I added too many L's in there, but anyway, on the outside of the thigh, so trying to evenly work through there. Breathing nice and deeply through the nostrils, keep the mouth closed. Okay, and then inhale, come up, shake them out. And we're going to take a block or some form of prop, like a can or a water bottle or something. And we're going to do Arda Chandrasana, which is to balance on one leg. So we're going to start with the right leg. I'm going to turn to face, well, it's the front of my mat. I'm going to put the block down in front of me, and I'm going to use the wall, or whatever you're leaning against, to help. Because if you have weakness in the knee, this is going to help to stabilise you. Have the block in front, bend the right knee a little. You're then going to lift the left leg up behind you and then open the left hip. So as you lift up through the right thigh, so like we were doing in mountain, don't want to just snap the knee back. You want to lift up through the kneecap, engage the quad. And your hand onto the block but resting, so you want the hand directly under the shoulder, straight arm. And then externally rotate the left hip, so the toes are pointing out to the side. Squeeze, lift through the thighs, and then lift the top hand up. So you're leaning back. So I can feel that quite strongly, that stretch through the inside of the knee there. That's a strengthening as well. Keep the kneecap lifting. And you can look forward if the shoulders are tight, or if you can, you'll look up to the top hand and keep that left leg raised, leaning back. And then as you inhale, you'll then exhale, rolling the left foot back down, bend the right knee. So both feet next to each other, and then coming up to stand. Other side. Same thing. Coming onto the left foot. So I'm about half a foot away from the wall. So bending my left knee, left hand to the block, lift the right hand up, the right heel up behind you. Start to externally rotate the right hip. Lift up through the thigh, flex the right toes. Bring your right arm up. Feel here, you're lifting up strongly through the left thigh, opening through the hip. It's almost like you're squeezing the thighs to the midline, even though they're apart. Squeeze the shoulder blades towards each other, look up. Use your breath to steady. Inhale. And then as you exhale, look down, float the right foot down, just ragdoll for a moment. So hold on to your elbows, let your head hang, bend your knees slightly. And then inhale, coming up and coming back to the mat. So we're going to come into Trichonosana, triangle. From the front of the mat, take your left foot back. And we want to go quite wide enough that you're going to feel the stretch more. You can practice yourself as to how far wide feels. The right foot is going to point forward, and the heel of the right foot is in line with the instep of the left foot, which is in line with the back of the mat. But you'll find that you almost won't feel a stretch as much if your feet are too close together. So just see how it feels for you. Now lifting up through the thigh. So again, we're not going to snap that knee back and hyperextend the back of the knee. So you're going to lift. It's an energetic lift up through the thighs, kneecaps lift. Feel the thighs squeeze to the midline. And inhale, take your arms out wide. And look over your front hand. You're now going to take the left hip back. So straight legs, but the left hip goes back. You'll feel that stretch up through that vastus muscle, the inner thigh. And then you're going to reach as far as you can before you tip. So keep strongly pulling up, particularly through the right thigh. Reach, reach, reach until you can reach no more, and then tip that hand down. So you can actually, if you want, you can either bring the back of the hand to the shin, or you could rest the hand on the block, whichever feels more uncomfortable, but keep feeling that energy, pulling the right thigh bone up and open. So now squeezing the shoulder blades towards each other, but you're keeping length through the spine. So you want to try and side body long, so lengthening from the right hip crease to the armpit, keeping as long as possible. Look up at the top hand. And the longer we're able to hold these poses, controlling our breath, the deeper the stretch and strengthen. Okay, so inhale, look down, take the block with you. You're going to bend the right knee, come to the other side. So turn your right foot parallel to the front of the mat, left foot points back. You can use the block. Again, lift up through the thighs, squeeze the thighs to the midline, and feel almost like your ankles are coming in the direction of each other energetically. Take the arms out wide. Lift the shoulders up, roll them back, so making sure shoulders away from ears. Look at over your front hand. Take the right hip back. And then reaching as far as you can, side body long. Again, you want that lengthening from the hip, left hip to the left armpit. And then tip down, take the hand to the block, reach the top hand up. And it's almost like you're leaning back, as if you'd come down between two panes of glass. So you're rolling the left buttock under, lifting up through the thighs, squeeze to the midline. Take 2 more breaths here. And then inhale, coming up, bring your feet parallel. keeping the block in front of you, hands to your hips. So feet are wide, you've got, even though the feet are parallel, it's the outside edge of the feet are parallel, so the big toes are slightly turned in, and then squeeze your shins towards each other. Feel that lift up through the pelvic floor, navel to spine, and then we're going to exhale, and I'll show you side on. So try not to take the hips back too far. You want to keep that energy coming up. It's almost like if you had your hands on the bony part of your pelvis. As you lift up through the thighs, you're going to turn the pelvis forward so the tailbone goes up. Keep the spine nice and long, keep the core strong. And then reach for the block, relax your head. Bring your elbows towards each other so they're pointing back as if they're going between your thighs, but you want to keep tipping the tailbone up. And it's a forward fold. So if you're more flexible, you can bring your palms down, reach the top of the head towards the mat, or you can just stay here, but feel that action of lifting up the tailbone, feel the inner thighs stretching, the outer thighs working. You start to come up, come to halfway lift, hands to hips, extend through the chest. So flat back, bring your shoulder blades towards each other. Exhale, just bend your knees slightly and then slowly come up to stand. And then heel, toe, your feet until you can bring your legs together. Give them a shake. And then coming to sit, and then lying back, bring your heels, in fact we'll use the block, take the block lengthways, lie it on the mat and put your your ankles, feet either side of the block, and then lie back down, bring your heels with the block so that you can touch them. We're going to come into bridge pose. Setu Bandhasana. So with bridge pose, like making sure the thighs are parallel, which is why we also want that inward squeeze action, but keeping the thighs separate. So as you press the feet down and squeeze the block inwards, you're then going to have your arms by your side, press the forearms and the palms down. As you inhale, feel the lower back press into the mat and then lift your hips. So squeeze the block, press your heels down. Feel as if your knees are going away from your head, pushing in the opposite direction. Just gently, so we're not really squeezing the glutes too firmly, and the block's helping because what will happen if you're overusing your glutes, the thighs will roll outwards slightly. So we're trying to use the thigh muscles rather than the glutes. Keep that activation towards the midline, so squeezing into that block, and then exhale, lowering down vertebrae by vertebrae, so your hips come down last. Take a moment, and we're going to do that again. So again, squeeze the block, press your lower back gently down, lift your hips, and this time we're going to clasp our hands underneath us, but roll side to side, so you can roll the tops of your arms under, so it's really helping to open through the collarbone. And as you press your forearms towards the mat and then push your fists towards your heels, press your heels down, squeeze the block, see if you can lift the hips a little higher. And then take the arms out to the side, As you exhale, lowering down slowly, hips come down last. Okay, now we're going to move the block to the side. So doing this again, just with the arms to the side, so pressing the forearms and the palms down. We're going to inhale, again peeling the hips up, and this time you're going to lift the right leg, but you don't allow your hips to sag down, so keeping the thighs parallel, so don't lift the right leg too high, thighs parallel, really pushing through the sole of the left foot. Trying to keep the hips up, and then exhale, lower the right foot down, and then lower through the vertebrae. Take a breath here, and then the other side. So you're going to inhale, lower back into the mat, that engages your core muscles, lift your hips, then lift the left leg, keep the thighs parallel, keep the hips level. Use your forearms as well, so you feel that strength through the shoulders, the chest opening. Look how strong that quad is working, but evenly. Okay, and then exhale, left foot down, lowering down to the mat. Okay, and then straighten the left leg, hug the right knee in. If it doesn't feel good to hug through the shin, then just take the back of the thigh. Straighten the right leg, bring the left knee to your chest. Inhale. Then coming up to sit, we're going to take the left leg behind you. In fact, I'll have my smaller towel. Left leg behind you, but you want to take the flesh of the calf out to the side, and your toes pointing backwards, so try not to have the foot at an angle. You want to be as much on top of the foot as you can be. If this is too intense through the knee, like we did in child's pose, you can just pull, I use a thick sock sometimes, just into the back of the knee joint. So we're helping to stretch through the front of the ankle and open through the knee a little. Take your hand to your right buttock and just pull it out to the side to even you up a little bit. Flex the right foot. And we're just going to go back a little, so you're going to press your palms into the mat, but your fingers facing your hips. Elbows hugging towards each other, bend at the elbows a little, and scoop your tailbone under. So scooping under, you'll feel this stretch through the top of the thigh. And also trying to keep the knees, the thighs as parallel as possible. If you feel that you're tipping over to the right side too much, you can use another towel to prop your bottom up on the right side. But just go where it feels good for you. If it feels good, nice stretch through the quad, the front of the thigh, you can come back a little further. But just go to where you think it's enough. Don't go past your edge. Okay. And all of these, you can sit in them a little bit longer, but we'll come out of that one. So turning to the other side, so bending the right foot behind you, pointing the toes back. Take the flesh of the right calf out. Thighs parallel, so taking the flesh of the calf out. Flex the left foot, bring the flesh of the left calf out. Use your towel if you need to open through the joint or prop your left hip, and coming back. Scoop your tailbone under. Feel that stretch through the quad. And using the exhale also emotionally you may be, if it's something sore or you've had pain there, you're anticipating pain, just breathing through that, allowing your body to soften. Okay, coming up, roll to the side, release the knee, and then come into, if you want to sit up on a block, we'll come into our easy pose. So just lying the shins down, one in front of the other, bringing your hips, so your sitting bones are just tipping over the edge of your block or your blanket, and sitting up nice and tall. So sitting up on the block helps to release through the hamstrings a little, so you can straighten through the spine. Close your eyes. Inhaling deeply, exhaling completely. Bring your palms together at your heart center, lowering your head and opening your eyes. Namaste. Have a lovely day. Thank you.